The stars have long been a realm of opportunity and terror for those who dare venture into the dark void. Beyond the comfort of the Imperium's sprawling fortresses lies a lawless expanse, where survival is measured not by loyalty, but by the cunning of one's heart. Amidst this vast wilderness of stars, a solitary figure moves, a rogue traitor, shrouded in mystery, lost to the tides of time and the whirlpools of power. They answer to no one but themselves, yet their choices shape the fate of entire worlds. But what is the true cost of a life led by ambition, when the galaxy is a canvas of blood and betrayal? In the grim darkness of the 41st millennium, their story is one of survival, exploitation, and uneasy alliances. But when the stars grow colder and their enemies circle ever closer, what price will they pay for their sins? If you've ever wondered about the true cost of living in the shadows of the Imperium, join us. But before we delve into this tale of wretched survival, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. You won't want to miss what comes next. The ship drifted through the void, silent and still, as the stars outside stretched into endless pinpricks of light, too far and too cold to touch. For the rogue trader, there was no solace in the beauty of the universe. They had seen too much, too many worlds consumed by the greed and fire of man, too many lives lost in the shadows of power. The ship's hull, a massive construct of steel and iron, groaned with the weight of its journey, and yet it felt strangely empty. The crew moved like phantoms, each one locked in their own thoughts, their eyes glancing nervously toward the void outside. In the galactic wilderness, there were no rules, no laws to govern the stars, just a harsh reality where only the strong survived and the weak were left to rot. The rogue trader knew this all too well. They had spent their life carving out a place for themselves in this desolate expanse, building their empire with blood, sweat, and the cold, calculating decisions that would leave a trail of destruction in their wake. Yet, in this vast, empty space, they couldn't escape the feeling that something was watching them, something just beyond the edge of their perception. The ship's engines hummed with power, a constant reminder of the journey ahead. It would be another long trip to the next world, a barren rock, one more in a long line of forgotten places where fortunes could be made or lost. The crew had been restless ever since they set course. Whispers floated through the corridors, murmurs about the captain, about their past, about the choices that had led them here. Some were loyal. Others were just looking for a way to survive. Trust was a currency rarer than water in the void. The rogue trader knew this well. They had learned long ago that loyalty was not something to be given freely. It had to be earned, and even then, it could be taken away in the blink of an eye. The comms crackled to life, pulling them from their thoughts. "Captain, we've detected something unusual on the far side of the system." The voice of the helmsman, grim and distant, echoed through the ship's vox grill. "Not sure what it is, but it's not like anything we've seen before." The rogue trader's grip tightened around the data slate they held, their mind racing. A new threat? Or perhaps a new opportunity? They leaned forward, their eyes narrowing. In this business, everything was a risk, but it was the ones who embraced the uncertainty who came out on top. "Prepare for course deviation," they commanded, their voice cold, unwavering. "Set a new heading, full speed ahead." The ship began to shift, the distant stars outside warping as the navigator made their adjustments. The rogue trader's heart beat a little faster, their pulse quickening with the anticipation of what lay ahead. They had faced down worse in their time, countless enemies, dangerous alliances, and the very nature of the Imperium itself. But now, something was different. A strange, unfamiliar sense of unease crept up their spine, like a shadow lurking just out of sight. The void was a cruel and unforgiving place, and the rogue trader had learned long ago to trust no one, not even themselves. The ship's atmosphere grew heavier as the crew prepared for whatever lay beyond the edge of the system. They had come this far. There was no turning back now. But in their heart, they knew the risks. The unknown could bring treasure, or it could bring ruin. And for a rogue trader, there was no room for weakness. Only strength, cunning, and the relentless pursuit of power. As the ship's engines roared to life, the rogue trader stared into the depths of the void, their thoughts dark and brooding. This was their life. A life of danger, of uncertainty, of survival at any cost. The question was no longer whether they would succeed or fail. It was how much of their soul they were willing to lose in the process. The coldness of space wrapped around them like a suffocating blanket, and the familiar hum of the ship's engines grew louder in the rogue trader's ears. They stood alone in the command bridge, staring out into the black sea of stars, lost in thought. The ship's crew moved like shadows in the background, their faces flickering under the dim light of the control panels. But the rogue trader had no time for distractions. This mission was crucial. Whatever lay ahead, it could either solidify their place among the stars or tear down everything they had built. "Captain," the comms officer's voice cut through the silence, startling the rogue trader. "We've come within range of the anomaly. It's emitting some sort of energy pulse. We've never encountered anything like it before." The rogue trader clenched their jaw. The unknown. It was always the unknown that seemed to drive them forward, despite the risks. It was a double-edged sword, the allure of untapped power and the fear of what could be lurking just beyond the veil. The voice of caution, always there in the back of their mind, was quiet now, drowned out by the roar of ambition. "Report to the bridge," the rogue trader ordered. "Activate the long-range scanners. I want to know what we're dealing with." As the crew scrambled into action, the rogue trader's mind wandered to their previous ventures. Each planet they visited, each world they claimed, had left its mark on them, forging a reputation that was equal parts respect and fear. They had navigated the corridors of power, struck deals with Xenos and Astartes alike, each bargain made in blood and iron. But in the deepest corners of their soul, the rogue trader knew that none of it would matter if they couldn't maintain control. The galaxy was a treacherous place, and the price of survival was always steep. The ship shuddered, and the loud thrum of the engines shifted to a higher pitch, signaling the initiation of the jump to the unknown. The stars outside twisted into streaks of light, bending and stretching in ways the rogue trader had only seen in old, half-forgotten star charts. The crew fell silent, as if the very air was thick with tension. What could they possibly expect from a place so remote, so untouched by the chaos of the Imperium? "Captain, we've made the jump." The navigator's voice echoed, low and tense. But the distortion, it's growing. Something isn't right. The rogue trader's hand gripped the armrest of the captain's chair, knuckles white with tension. The ship's sudden lurch forward sent a shiver through their spine. The feeling of control, that long-held certainty of the path ahead, slipped further away with each passing moment. The rogue trader wasn't just facing a new world now. They were staring into the abyss itself, and it was staring back. "Plot a course to the source of the energy," they ordered, their voice betraying no hint of fear, though their mind raced. "We go in, and we find out what's waiting for us. Whatever it is, we claim it." The crew's apprehension was palpable. Whispers spread through the bridge like wildfire, fear creeping into their words. They had all heard the stories of rogue traders who had disappeared without a trace, swallowed by the void in search of glory or riches. Many had thought them foolish, too reckless, too driven by their own thirst for power. But for the rogue trader, that was the only way to carve their name into the annals of history. The stars didn't care who you were, but the galaxy would remember you if you dared to reach for it. "Yes, Captain," the navigator responded, his voice steady despite the uncertainty. "Course laid in." The ship veered once more, cutting through the abyss of deep space with a violent force, and the crew braced for what was to come. Every turn, every jump felt like a gamble, and the stakes had never been higher. The rogue trader stood at the edge of it all, watching the stars burn around them. They had no idea what awaited them in the depths of the galaxy. But they knew one thing for sure. There would be no turning back. The ship's hull groaned under the pressure, the energy pulse now overwhelming their sensors. The rogue trader leaned forward, eyes narrowing in focus as they stared at the readouts. Something ancient was ahead, something that shouldn't exist in the known universe. And yet, here it was. Something that could either be the answer to their prayers, or the end of everything they had ever worked for. And with that, they prepared themselves for the next chapter in their journey. Whatever awaited in the blackness, they would face it head-on. After all, a rogue trader's place was not among the safe and comfortable. They were born to venture where others feared to tread, to claim what others thought was unattainable. They would either make their mark or fade into the stars as yet another forgotten name. The ship dropped out of warp space with a suddenness that rocked the crew, a shudder rippling through the hull like the breath of a leviathan disturbed from its slumber. For a moment, the universe around them seemed to hold its breath, silent, still, as if the galaxy itself was watching them. The stars were sharp against the black velvet of the void, their lights cold and unyielding. The rogue trader's gaze swept across the vast expanse, and for the briefest of moments, they wondered if they had made the right choice. Ahead, the planet loomed, its surface scarred, ravaged by some forgotten conflict. The once proud cityscapes now crumbled into ruin, vast stretches of land stained with the echoes of a past civilization. It was a world that had been drained of its life force, its soul traded away in the name of greed, power, and destruction. The air was thick with the scent of decay, the very atmosphere holding on to the ghosts of what it once was. "This is it," the rogue trader muttered, almost to themselves, though the crew could hear it. "Prepare for landing. Let's see what treasure or damnation this world holds." The crew scrambled into action. The engines hummed as the ship descended, cutting through the upper atmosphere with a deadly grace. The world below them seemed to writhe, a canvas of barren land and forgotten promises. A place where the strong had come to take, and the weak had been left behind. As the ship settled onto the ground with a heavy thud, the rogue trader's mind began to race. This wasn't just any world. This was a planet where trade went beyond commodities, where souls were the currency. They had heard the whispers. Here, in the ruins, among the forgotten, a dangerous market thrived. Deals were struck not in gold or precious metals, but in something far darker. Here, people were traded like cattle, bought and sold for the right price. Souls, the very essence of life. As the airlock hissed open, a wave of fetid air rushed in, carrying with it the taste of rot and desperation. The rogue trader stepped out onto the desolate land, boots crunching against the dust that covered the planet's surface. The sky above them was a sickly green, the sun an oppressive, bloated orb that cast long, twisted shadows across the cracked earth. A figure approached from the shadows, tall and cloaked in ragged robes, their face obscured by a mask of bone. The rogue trader's sharp eyes narrowed as the figure drew near, sensing the danger that lurked beneath the surface of their calm demeanor. "You came for the trade," the figure said, their voice low and rasping, like the whisper of death itself. "But what are you willing to offer? What price will you pay for what you seek?" The rogue trader studied the figure, calculating. It was not the first time they had made such deals. There was always a cost, always something to be given in exchange for power or riches. But here, in this forsaken place, the price was different. It wasn't just material wealth that was on the table. It was something far more valuable, something that could not be replaced once lost. "I offer power," the rogue trader said, their voice cold, measured. "The power to command armies, to conquer worlds. I offer knowledge of things the Imperium has long forgotten." The figure's eyes gleamed from behind the mask, a faint glint of interest in their otherwise unreadable expression. "Knowledge," they echoed. "Yes, that is a valuable currency. But will you give everything for it? Will you surrender your soul in exchange for the secrets you crave?" The rogue trader's heart skipped a beat. There was something in the figure's voice that chilled them to the bone. It was as if they knew the darkest corners of the rogue trader's mind, as if they could see the very essence of their being. But the rogue trader could not afford to show weakness. Not now, not in front of this creature, this trader of souls. "I will give whatever it takes," the rogue trader replied, their voice unwavering. "Whatever it takes to secure my place among the stars." The figure paused, considering. Then, with a slow, deliberate motion, they extended a hand. The air around them seemed to grow colder, the silence pressing in on the rogue trader like the weight of 1,000 years. The deal was being struck, and there was no turning back now. The rogue trader took the figure's hand, sealing the bargain with a firm grip. As they did, they felt a chill seep into their bones, a coldness that burrowed deep within them, settling in places they didn't know existed. For a brief moment, they wondered what they had truly given away. But it was too late for such questions. The trade had been made, and as they turned to leave the desolate world behind, the rogue trader couldn't shake the feeling that they had just made a terrible mistake. But that was the way of the stars. Everything came with a cost. The journey back to the ship felt different. The air seemed heavier, as though the very atmosphere of the planet had seeped into the rogue trader's lungs, filling their body with a weight that was impossible to shake. The deal had been struck, the power promised, but the cost, that cost, lingered in the back of their mind like a shadow that refused to leave. They had heard the rumors, the whispers about the price of such bargains, but they never expected to feel it so acutely. As they climbed back aboard the ship, their mind raced with the consequences of what they had just done. The crew, as usual, fell into their own routines, busy with the mechanics of running the ship. But there was something off about them today. A tension hung in the air, as if something had shifted without their noticing. The rogue trader could feel it, the undercurrent of distrust spreading like a disease among the crew. Was it just the atmosphere of the planet they had left behind, or was it something deeper? They had learned long ago that trust was a commodity as rare as gold in this business, and it could be taken away as easily as it was given. The rogue trader's eyes flicked over the crew as they moved about the ship, each one seeming to keep their distance just a little more than usual. It was subtle, the way they avoided eye contact, the way their conversations would suddenly hush when the rogue trader entered a room. They could feel it in the pit of their stomach. Someone was plotting. Someone was going to betray them. The thought gnawed at them, but they couldn't put a face to the suspicion. There were too many variables, too many moving parts in this game. But the rogue trader knew one thing for sure. Betrayal was inevitable. It always was. Those who sought power could never truly be trusted, and those who followed could never truly be loyal. It was the price of ambition, the price of survival. The ship's Vox grill crackled, breaking the silence, and the rogue trader's attention snapped back to reality. "Captain, we've detected an anomaly. It's moving toward us." The voice of the navigator was strained, as though he was unsure whether to trust what he was seeing. The rogue trader's blood ran cold. The stars outside flickered ominously, as if responding to the warning. They had barely escaped the last danger, and now something was coming for them once more. The strange energy pulse, the whispers of the deal. Was it all connected? The rogue trader felt the weight of it all press against their chest. It wasn't just about the treasure, or the power, or the riches anymore. There was something darker at play here, something they hadn't yet uncovered. "Set a course to intercept it," the rogue trader commanded, their voice steady despite the racing thoughts in their mind. "I want to know what's out there." As the crew moved to execute the order, the rogue trader paced the length of the bridge, unable to shake the feeling that they were walking directly into a trap. They had seen enough of the galaxy's grim reality to know that nothing was ever as it seemed. Power, wealth, influence, none of it came without a price, and they had paid it. The question now was, who would collect on the debt? The ship lurched as the engines roared to life, cutting through the stars toward the mysterious anomaly. The atmosphere in the command room grew tense as they neared the source of the disturbance, the air thick with anticipation and dread. The crew worked in silence, each member lost in their own thoughts, as though they all knew what was coming, yet dared not speak it aloud. As the ship neared the anomaly, the void around them seemed to twist, warping as if reality itself was bending. A vast, pulsating mass of energy appeared in the distance, its shape indistinct, as though it were made of the very fabric of the universe itself. It shimmered and writhed, as though alive, as though it had been waiting for them. The rogue trader stared at the mass, a knot tightening in their chest. They had seen many things in their time, monstrous creatures, long-dead gods, ancient technologies. But this was different. There was something deeply unsettling about it, something that made the rogue trader's skin crawl. It was not a threat they could defeat with a blaster or a fleet of ships. This was something far more dangerous. This was not an enemy they could fight. "Stand ready," the rogue trader muttered, their voice barely above a whisper. "This is no mere anomaly." The crew, sensing the change in tone, readied themselves. The ship's systems hummed with a strange energy as they drew closer to the pulse. The rogue trader felt the weight of their decisions closing in, each step toward the unknown, a step further into the abyss. They had made their choice. There was no going back now. As the ship closed in on the anomaly, the void around them seemed to crack open. A wave of psychic energy rippled through the ship, a cold, searing touch that sent a shiver down the rogue trader's spine. In that instant, they realized the truth. The deal they had struck, the bargain they had made, was only the beginning. And they were no longer in control. The ship shuddered violently, the hull groaning under the strain as the void around them seemed to warp further, bending and twisting like the very fabric of reality was tearing at the edges. The anomaly, no, whatever this was unlike anything the rogue trader had ever encountered. There were no words to describe it, no framework of understanding in the known universe that could explain its presence. The air in the command bridge grew thick, as if the very atmosphere had become charged with the unknown. "Captain, we're being pulled in." The navigator's voice broke through the tension, his hands shaking as he struggled to maintain control of the ship. "The gravitational pull is increasing, and..." Before he could finish, the ship lurched again, sending the crew stumbling. Alarms blared, and the lights flickered in a maddening rhythm, casting the crew's faces in harsh shadows. The rogue trader's heart pounded in their chest as they gripped the captain's chair, feeling the raw force of the anomaly's power. This wasn't just some strange cosmic event. This was something far more sinister, something purposeful. The rogue trader knew instinctively that they had crossed a threshold, one that could not be undone. They had come in search of power, riches, and answers, but now they were facing something far darker, something beyond the comprehension of even the most learned scholar of the Imperium. "We cannot fight it," the rogue trader muttered to themselves, the realization sinking in like a stone in their gut. "We have no weapons against this." "Captain!" A voice shouted from the comm station, cutting through the growing sense of dread. "We've detected movement." The rogue trader turned sharply, their eyes narrowing. "What kind of movement?" The officer hesitated, his face pale. "I don't know, Captain. It's not biological. But there's something out there, something moving toward us." The rogue trader's instincts kicked in, a threat, something coming to claim them. They had barely escaped death at the hands of their enemies countless times before, but this was different. The stars outside no longer appeared as distant, cold lights. They seemed to pulse with an unnatural energy, as though the void itself had taken on a life of its own. The rogue trader's mind raced. Had their deal, that deal, opened a door to something they could never have predicted. They had felt the chill of the bargain as it was struck, but they had been so focused on what they stood to gain that they hadn't fully considered the consequences. Now, as the ship's systems groaned and the lights flickered with unnatural frequency, They realized they had made a terrible error. They had sought control, and in doing so, had relinquished it entirely. As the bridge crew scrambled to assess the situation, the ship was suddenly rocked by another violent tremor. The lights cut out entirely, plunging them into darkness. For a moment, there was only the sound of frantic breathing and the hiss of static over the comms. Then, with a sudden burst of light, the view screen flickered to life, revealing a sight that nearly stole the rogue trader's breath. The anomaly had opened. Before them was a massive rift in space, stretching across the heavens like a wound in the fabric of the universe itself. At its core, someone stood. Their figure was silhouetted against the darkness, tall and imposing, though the details of their form remained shrouded in shadow. The very presence of this being sent a shockwave through the rogue trader's mind, a wave of fear and recognition. The air seemed to hum with power, a cosmic force beyond comprehension. This was not a god. This was not a creature of the warp. This was something else entirely. It was then that the rogue trader understood. The price had not only been their soul, it had been their very connection to reality itself. They had unknowingly opened the gates to something ancient, something that predated even the Imperium. And it was hungry. The figure spoke, their voice reverberating across the ship like a chorus of 1,000 whispers. "You have come seeking power," it said, the words dripping with malice. "But you have awakened that which should not be." The rogue trader felt a cold shiver crawl up their spine. "Who are you?" they demanded, their voice hoarse, though they stood firm. "I am the Reckoning," the figure intoned, the void around them seeming to darken further. "And you, rogue trader, are but a pawn in a game that has already been lost." The words hit with the weight of inevitability. The rogue trader knew in that moment that there was no escape from what they had summoned. No matter how far they had come, no matter how many lives they had taken or worlds they had conquered, this was their end. The reality of their situation sank in. The deal had not just bound their soul, it had bound them to the fate of the galaxy itself. The price of their ambition was not just power. It was the destruction of everything they had ever sought to control. And in that moment, with the rift swirling before them, the rogue trader realized the true meaning of the reckoning that was upon them. They had made their choice, and now they would face the consequences. The rift before them pulsed with an unholy light, a constant searing throb that seemed to warp reality itself. The ship's hull groaned, its systems struggling to function under the pressure of the cosmic force that pressed in from all sides. The rogue trader stood frozen in the center of the command bridge, staring at the massive tear in the fabric of the universe. This was no longer a mere challenge. This was a force of nature, something far beyond their comprehension, far beyond the reach of even the mightiest powers of the Imperium. As the figure within the rift spoke again, their voice reverberated through the ship, rattling the rogue trader's bones. "You believed you could control fate," it said, its tone low, mocking. "But fate has already chosen its course." The rogue trader's chest tightened as they tried to steady their breathing, fighting the rising tide of panic. They had lived their entire life in pursuit of control. The rogue trader had never been someone to bow to fate, to succumb to the whims of forces they could not see or touch. But this was different. This wasn't a battle of wills. This was a reckoning. and there was no escaping it. "What are you?" the rogue trader asked, their voice barely above a whisper, as though the very question might tear open the walls of the universe itself. The figure's silhouette remained shrouded in shadow, its form shifting in ways that seemed impossible, as though its presence existed in multiple dimensions at once. "I am the beginning," it replied. "I am the end. I am the thing that was forgotten, and the thing that will consume all. You, rogue trader, are but a fleeting moment in a universe that will soon be undone." The rogue trader's mind reeled. This wasn't just an ancient entity. This was a force of creation and destruction, a being that had existed before time itself, now awakening from its slumber. How had they been foolish enough to think they could control such a power? How had they been blind to the true cost of the deal they had struck? The ship's systems flickered violently, and the crew scrambled to maintain control. The ship's engines sputtered, and the lights pulsed erratically, casting shadows that seemed to move on their own. Panic spread among the crew, whispers of fear creeping through the ranks. The rogue trader's heart pounded in their chest, but their resolve remained firm. There had to be something they could do. There had to be a way to fight back, even against this cosmic force. The figure's voice cut through their thoughts once more. "You sought power," it said, its voice growing louder, almost mocking. "But what is power, rogue trader, when you are nothing more than a speck in the grand design?" The rogue trader felt the weight of the words sink deep into their chest. It was true. They had spent their life fighting, trading, scheming for power, for control. They had built an empire out of nothing. But in the face of this ancient being, all of it seemed meaningless. In the end, what was power when the very fabric of the galaxy itself was unraveling? "No!" the rogue trader shouted, their voice trembling with defiance. "I will not be swallowed by fate. I will not—" "You already are," the figure interrupted, its voice now a booming force that shook the ship to its very core. "There is no escaping what you have awakened. You were warned, but the price of your greed is the unraveling of everything you know." The rogue trader staggered back, their breath coming in short gasps. The rift pulsed again, and this time it was not just a visual distortion. The air around them thickened, the very space itself warping, bending, as if the laws of physics had been torn apart. The rogue trader's grip on their sanity slipped for a moment, and for the briefest of seconds, they thought they saw something within the rift. An image, a vision of their own destruction, of their empire crumbling to ash in the wake of this force. But they refused to give in. They couldn't, not after everything they had sacrificed, not after everything they had endured. "Tell me what I must do," the rogue trader demanded, their voice now steady, though their insides twisted with fear. "How do I end this?" The figure's laugh echoed through the ship, chilling and filled with an ancient sorrow. "There is nothing you can do. The path is already set. You have crossed the line, and now you will be taken, as all must be taken. The galaxy will fall, and you will fade into the void, forgotten as all things are." The rogue trader's mind raced. This was no longer a fight for control, no longer about the power they had sought for so long. This was about survival, about making sure that, even in the face of this cosmic reckoning, they did not go quietly into the dark. The rogue trader turned away from the screen, their heart pounding with the realization that their fate had been sealed. But even as the despair of inevitability settled upon them, a single thought flared to life in their mind. There is always a way out. There must be. They would fight, not for victory, but for a chance to defy fate itself. With a grim determination, the rogue trader turned back to face the rift. "Then let it come," they said, their voice firm. "Let the end come, but I will not go without a fight." The figure in the rift remained silent, as if it too understood the weight of what was about to transpire. And so, the rogue trader prepared for the final confrontation. The end had come, but it was not yet their time to fall.